The Center for Educational Media and the College of Education at Middle Tennessee State University are proud to offer professional development to K-12 educators in Tennessee through our online video library. These videos are aligned with standards set by the Tennessee Department of Education. For more professional development videos, check out our website at www.mtsu.edu/CEM.
And now for our second session. The second session's title is Virtual Learning in Rural Districts for English Learners, presented by Rachel Counts. Rachel is the EL coordinator in Lawrence County Schools, and Rachel has served for a number of years as the regional advisor in the South Central Core region. And so, Rachel, talk to us, please, about issues in rural districts.
I've been teaching ESL in a rural district for almost 25 years now. And we know that in a rural district, you kind of are everything ESL. I'm in a district that's in South Central Tennessee, down on the Alabama line, and we are most definitely a rural district, some very remote areas. It can be pretty overwhelming. I know in the earlier session there was someone talking about being alone, but when you have a limited number of teachers, it can be really overwhelming during a regular year, but especially during a COVID-19 year. So as Joanne said this morning, English learners continue to be one of the fastest growing subgroups, and I think that's especially true in rural areas. With all that's going on in the world right now, I think a small area with a lower cost of living is what I'm trying to say. I think we're looking really attractive right now. We know that there are unique challenges in rural districts. Access to internet is a huge issue in Lawrence County. There's some very remote areas where internet's just not available, where there's not even good phone service. So you've got teachers serving multiple grades, maybe six grades for one teacher, in multiple schools. So these are uncertain times. It is hard in a rural district, and we don't know what will happen. But I want to talk today about just doing what works best for you and what works best for your district. I think about that district self-assessment, and that's something that, I may need to go back and look at. But what does my district need right now? What do I need to work on to make this successful? So I want to start with requirements. Jan and Joanne talked a lot about that this morning, but I know that I've got to meet minimum requirements. We're legally obligated to communicate with our EL families in a language that they can understand. Content teachers and ESL teachers, we have to accommodate instruction and make it comprehensible and accessible to our English learners. And then all students still have to have an individual learning plan, and we want to use that in the most successful way during virtual learning. So I think it's a lot about just a change of mindset. How do I meet requirements no matter what model my district is using? And right now, we don't know in Lawrence County. I think it'll be a combination, maybe 3 or 4 different models. But I want to think about how can I serve my students most effectively in this environment? And how do I support my content teachers and still teach English virtually? So it's just changing my mindset and thinking about it in a different way. I think consistency is key. I think it's a great year to think about co-teaching. I saw some people talking about that in the chat. I've got some great teachers that I like working with that work really well with ELLs. I think it's a good year to get in and teach together. Teaching language through content. We know that ESL students have to do double the work that they don't have double the time, probably more than double. And then now we've got this gap with COVID on top of that. But another thing I want to talk about is aligning practices. You want to go along with what your district is doing, what your school's doing, what other teachers are doing. For example, we're a Google Classroom district. So whatever I'm using, I want to make sure that it's compatible with Google Classroom, just to be consistent. I want to look for ESL components and what we're already using. I know that classroom teachers are going to be using Discovery Ed, Reading Math, our new ELL curriculum. So I want to be real familiar with the ESL supports that are already there. I know a lot of our programs have first language support and directions. I know a lot of the materials are available in English and Spanish. They have read aloud, but I want to have a real good idea of what supports are already there for classroom teachers. Want to focus on relationships, collaboration, and a mindset of shared ownership and responsibility. These are our students, and we do love them, but they're not just my students. We want to see how we can work together. And in a small district, anywhere, you can't do it alone, or you're going to become very, very overwhelmed. So I know that I need the support of the people around me. The first relationship I want to talk about is your relationship with parents and families. We need them now more than ever, and they need us more than ever. For a lot of EL families, you're their person. Parents need to know that what they're doing is okay. They don't have to have internet or a computer. I can't tell you how many times I've called a family and they've said, "I'm sorry, teacher, but we don't have internet. We don't have a computer." And they shouldn't have to apologize for that. We want to make sure that we're going to meet the needs of that child and that family, no matter what the situation. That family may need a paper packet. I mean, I'm hopeful that we'll all have internet and a device, but if that doesn't, then we have to do what that student needs. And it may be talking on a telephone and providing a paper packet. But just making sure, I think first things first, you've got to make sure that their health needs and their basic needs are met, that they've got food. These are hard times. And then all the updates, you want to be sure that families are getting all the new information in a language that they can understand. You want to communicate regularly. And I always tell my parents, just tell your kids to read. And they can read in their home language. This is a great time to be developing that home language. And then we definitely need the parents to help us with routines and expectations for virtual learning, because they're going to be the ones there to monitor that. Content and grade level teachers, we're experts at scaffolding and providing visuals and videos and sentence frames. So back to that co-teaching, if you can get in there and you can work together and you can provide those types of pieces, we know that is beneficial to all students, not just our English learners. And we know that all students are going to need those scaffolds. Home language support, communicating with EL families. I know last night my phone was blowing up. There's a survey out, and they depend on us to communicate with our EL families. And our EL families are comfortable with us doing that contact. So, and then you've got the individual learning plan. Use that as a tool to collaborate. Use that as a tool to give teachers and everybody that's working with that kid just a clear picture of what a good student they are, what they're able to do, their proficiency level, their background information, and the assets that they bring to the classroom. We want them to see that our kids are pretty sharp, and they have some assets to bring, and how they can build on that with strategies. We need administrators. Scheduling, that's probably the hardest thing any year. And then when you get it set, a new student moves in. But you want an administrator can really help you plan that schedule. I think about intentional placement. This is a year I want, if there's not too many, I want them in the same room. So I'm collaborating not with 4 first grade teachers, but with 1 if possible. They can ensure that you have some shared planning time or other ways to collaborate. Because I really think that's key. Not adding on, but working together, content and language. We also need administrators to be advocates for our students and help us with resources. And we want to be proactive. We don't want to wait until there's a problem. Let admin know what you need to make virtual learning successful. If you don't know, if you don't ask, you're not going to know. So don't be hesitant or scared to ask for help. Paraprofessionals. I have a part-time ESL assistant who also happens to be bilingual. So we know that roles may change this year. I think I'm probably going to need her for a lot of tech support with my Spanish-speaking families. A lot of parent outreach, translating, and those paper packets. I know that she'll be able to help me with that. And then we know there's going to be responsibilities that are just different this year. Shared responsibilities of the school, like cleaning and things related to our new normal. Volunteers, I don't know what I would have done without my volunteers this year. They've helped with food boxes and distribution, and I don't always have to call them. They sometimes are calling me saying, give us some family names. What can we do to help you? So if you don't have volunteers, look for them, because there are people that want to help, and they're excellent resources. And then reach beyond your rural district. I'm so thankful for the MTSU District Collaborative. When you've just got 1, 2, or 3 people in your district, or any small number, you don't have a lot of people to network with and get ideas from. So reach out to surrounding or similar districts. Facebook is one of my favorite places to learn about ESL. There's some great groups advocating for ELLs, the We Educator Exchange. But if you've got a question, you can put it on there, and you can get the best answers. And if you don't want to put a question, you can Google it. You can put it in the search at the top of the group, and it's probably already been asked. But one of the latest things that I saw was Twitter. There was a list of people to follow on Twitter, and I love to stalk Twitter, and I listed some good people to follow there. YouTube, Miss Dorito, is a great model of virtual learning. She's speaking to EL educators, but she's great. And then the Boosting ELL Achievement podcast, lots of distance learning resources on Coloring Colorado. Don't reinvent the wheel. It's out there. Joseph, we borrow from Joseph. I take stuff all of the time. We're busy. Use resources outside of your rural district. And then our little English learners. Be sure that they know that you still love them, you care about them. Stay connected, and be sure that they can get in touch with you. Acknowledge that they may be struggling with some adult responsibilities, cooking, taking care of kids, full-time jobs. a lot of responsibilities right now. When you're teaching, be concise, be engaging. Just right today, it's hard to sit and listen for an extended amount of time. We've got to really work at making sure that it's relevant to their lives and engaging, and be reasonable in what you expect from your students. Don't let your frustration show because they can see it. And we want them to know that what they're doing is okay and you support them. So try not to show that frustration because they can sense it. Remember, collaborate and work together. Stay calm. Be compassionate with each other, with teachers, with students, with parents. As Jan mentioned, be flexible. And people are going to be, we understand that this is new to everybody. Everybody's got to be flexible. It's a great time to be creative. Start with those requirements. Try to be consistent. Work together and be kind. There's so many resources out there right now. And I've also added a page of resources. As I was doing this presentation, I got so sidetracked looking at everything, but there's so many free, good resources right now. In conclusion, we know this year will look different no matter what model is used. We are the experts at differentiating and making content comprehensible and accessible. So just think about your district and what's best for the kids in your district. Look at each kid individually and do what's best for that child. Thank you for what you do for our English learners every day. Thank you to Laura and the EL Collaborative, and thank you to the state and their support. Tennessee's a great place to be an ESL teacher.
Rachel, thank you so much. There's been lots of response to your comments, Rachel, particularly in support of your mentioning of establishing good homeschool relationships with families and parents, and your encouragement to develop their home language. So there's been lots of response on the chats, full agreement with that. A question about parent involvement at the high school level. Elementary level, easy. Middle school, maybe. High school, what are your thoughts on that?
I guess that's a good thing about being in a rural district is because I have their little brothers and sisters.
Yes.
Them when they were little. So if they've been here, I've already established that connection. I have an adult ESL class. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe do a Zoom adult ESL class, but I think that's a good way to connect with families.
And I know Jan Lanier jumped in on this and said that she thinks that parent involvement at the high school level is really important.
Yes, definitely.
Because if we don't have parent involvement at the high school level, the students will be translating, right?
Yes.
Interpreting everything. So, but you just described another strength of rural communities, and that is you've got well-established friendships already with the families.
Yeah. There's things that are hard, but there's definitely some benefits.
Right. Joseph, there was a question that popped up at the end. This is probably a quick answer. What is the score in the screening you were talking about? What's the score to know that a student does not qualify for ESL services?
So that tool or that what I was trying to share there was just try to give you a piece of information. You need to look at the state guidelines for what the state has about looking at the WIDA rubric, looking at SOLOM, and kind of gauging it for that. So there is not a particular score for that, but we are looking at students that are in the 3 range and above. Probably typically won't need the ESL services, and definitely 2 and below. Looks like they probably would. And then there'll be that range from 2 to 3 that you'll get as much information as you can in that exchange session with them. And then as the school year gets underway, you'll have to do the real screener anyway. You have to actually complete that one, and then make adjustments as necessary. So that particular thing doesn't have a very definite line across it. It's just some more information for everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, good question.
And we did have another question, and Rachel and Joseph may both jump on this. We addressed it in the morning. It's come up again. Kindergarten screening. Any additional thoughts, Rachel or Joseph, on kindergarten screening?
Go for it, Rachel.
Yeah. It's hard because, they're the ones that snuggle up next to you. I would use most of my students are Hispanic, but I would definitely use the help of my bilingual assistant in that situation. And she knows most of my families and has rapport there. So I have that asset.
I don't know if every district does it the same way, but at the initial part of our school year, when kindergartners are rolling into the school year, they don't start off with their full days right at the beginning. They are doing screening with them, with their classroom teachers. I would say for the ESL teachers, just to be in contact with those folks. They're not doing language screening, but what they are doing with the students is interacting. If they're getting a feel for how well that student comprehends instructions that they're doing through those screenings, that's a big piece of, will that student need to have additional language help or not? So until we can get in and actually do the kindergarten WAPT with them, piggyback on with whatever is happening anyway in kindergarten and work from that without throwing another thing yet in the path of those kiddos.
Okay. And participants, I want you to really pay attention to the chat right now. There are a number of references to translation apps. Some are district-centered. I see one mentioned in Metro, but then I see some others that are generally available. So the translation apps, I see a mention of a phone-in translation service. So if you have questions about translation, look at this chat. We've got people just pouring ideas into it. So do take a look at that. Let's see here. Looking down here, I don't see any further questions right now. And so, Joseph, this might be a good time. We've got 3 minutes.
Okay.
So, Rachel, thank you for your presentation of Rural Schools. And you can, if you'll jump off now. Joseph has an announcement about 10 TESOL and the fall conference.
Thank you. It's just good timing rather than kind of squeezing them at the end of the day here. So just want to let people know that there is a 10 TESOL fall conference this year. It is underway, being worked out. It will be virtual, much like this one, because we're not able to hold that in person. It is hosted by chaired by Dr. Hannah Gribble of Warren County Schools and the folks that work with her. So if you're a member of 10 TESOL, you can expect to get some information coming fairly soon about what that's going to look like, how registration will be held, and the actual dates for that. It is in October, and what that's going to look like. So be on the lookout for that. Of course, it will involve our friends from TDOE being there. And as I said, the arrangements for it might look a lot like what we're doing here today with the ELL collaborative with MTSU and the CEM. So be on the lookout for that. If you're not a member of 10 TESOL, just go to tntesol.org and it will be posted there. It's not there yet because what's there right now is actually about today's ELL collaborative. But expect that within the next few weeks or so. So thank you so much. We look forward to actually partnering with MTSU in kind of a turnaround of today's favor for this collaborative. Thanks, Dr. Clark.
And we look forward to working with you too with 10 TESOL in the fall as well.